Hello, hello, hello. Hey, everybody. How are you doing? I have something kind of different planned for today, which I'm pretty excited about. Um, I, which I'll do in the second half of the show. I'm first gonna play you the recorded version of "That Day Could Not Come Soon Enough," which is my focus single of the week. I've been focusing on the singles that I've been releasing as I release them, and this one was actually released a while ago, but it's the second song on the album. So, and last week was the first song, so I'm going to talk about it today. First, want to say thanks to everyone who's here. Welcome to the Willow Show, episode 3. The saga continues, and I hope everybody's doing well this week and enjoying the sun. This is basically perfect weather, I think. I had a cool experience of the weather because it was my dad's birthday. So we went on a boat on the Thames with our masks and sunglasses and had a good time. And I think it's definitely something you should do. We used one of those, they're called the Uber boats. They're really fast, which is very... So Amy's just telling me to turn up and just turning up my volume, but yeah. So yeah, we used this boat called the Uber boat, which was pretty fast. And as a result, we got around pretty quickly, and we went to Greenwich, it's amazing there. Really, really cool place. And it was one of those days where you get to experience London like a tourist again, which is cool. You know, when you live in a city and you don't take advantage of that sort of thing, it's cool to do it occasionally. And yeah, so that was the main thing this week. Been getting into running, trying to get fit. You know, lose the love down lock hand. What's it? Said the wrong thing. Lockdown love handles. And yeah, so that's been on the go, getting the running together. And the other thing that was really cool this week, which I don't know if any of you have seen it, I watched the movie Peanut Butter Falcon on Netflix, which was amazing. I found it so moving. I actually had to stop watching it at various points, pause, and kind of like walk around the house a bit. You know, let me make a drink, you know, procrastinating getting through it because it was just so intense. So in a moving way. So I'd advise anyone who's got Netflix to check out Peanut Butter Falcon. It's got, is it Shia or Shia LaBeouf? That guy. He was great. Dakota Johnson, and then somebody else who I can't remember. The guy in the lead role, I can't remember his name. Oh, his name is Zach as well, same as his character name. And it was an amazing movie, so Peanut Butter Falcon, I strongly recommend it. That was made a big impression on me this week, and I think that I will consider trying to write a song about it at some point, but sometimes, you know, like the movie is the song. I don't think I can do a better job. So maybe it'll inspire me tangentially. But yeah, so we have a whole bunch of stuff to do today, which is going to be super fun, and I've been preparing for it in a different way to usual, and you'll find out about that in a while. It's been a trip down memory lane, which I hope to have with you tonight. And it's the kind of thing, like if you're cooking and stuff, you won't need to watch. You can listen and then write it down and then jump in the comments if ever you feel obliged. because there's not going to be too much visual stuff tonight. There'll be a bit, but not that much. And welcome to everyone here at Adepi Fam. Would you say it like that, Linda? I like that very much. Amy, of course, in the next room, doing her weightlifting while watching. Adam, thanks for being here. Greg, thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy today's show. So I asked a few people if they were interested in sending in some questions based on the song that I am talking about this week. And I had quite a great response. And today I thought of just not, doing the song because it's quite intense in terms of talking about it. But I guess that's kind of what makes it special. And I think if it can help anyone in any way who might relate to it, then it's worth sharing. So the song is called That Day Could Not Come Soon Enough. And it, like a lot of my songs recently, it was based on, I guess, asking questions to start it off. It's questions that I hadn't asked before. And in a nutshell, the first verse of this, the first line is, "Am I angry with you? I'm ashamed if it's true." And it's the first time I had ever asked that question about, am I angry? And I think it's because I'm quite a non-confrontational kind of person. So if anything happens in life, I don't jump to anger. I kind of jump to rationalizing it away or something like that. But I had a phone call with somebody. I was looking into some, there's some amazing kind of low-cost, long-term psychotherapy type options here if you want to do a deep dive on yourself. And I was just calling to find out a bit about it, and the lady on the phone had a quick chat about me and, what is that? And she said, "You sound like you've got lots of, you've thought about it a lot and you've got lots of introspection and insight, but," which I'm like, you see, it's great, but you probably have a lot of anger that turns inward, and not a lot of anger, but some anger, because I don't consider myself an angry person, but I've allowed basically zero anger to ever come out. So, and I think that was a big prompt for me. So I got off the phone, and the first line I wrote just on my notepad, I said, "Am I angry with you?" And that started this whole song. And it just basically wrote itself. So each verse deals with a different, some will deal with different examples. And the examples, for me, I don't need to go overly into depth of what those are. But the principle is that maybe your people you love, like your parents or a partner or a sibling or whatever, like you can still love them and have been angry with them for something. And up until that moment, my mind was acting too dualistically. It's kind of, I'm not allowed to feel anger. It's unrighteous or something like that. And so that was a super deep discussion that I had with that very helpful lady on the phone. And afterwards, I sat down and wrote the song. And then this song also was kind of a new beginning for me, because I was asking myself a question I'd never asked myself. And it opened up a can of worms, which led to maybe a lot of songs. Not really worms about a can of worms about anger, but just about thoughts that might still be in the closet, So I kind of acknowledging the whole spectrum of thoughts, that you may have. Or, like, for example, I had a wrist injury. This is not in the song, but it's just an example of this sort of thing. Is I had a really bad wrist injury, which is still a problem. It's still sore, but I'm now functioning professional guitarist. So I've overcome that in many senses, but so I've had surgery on this wrist and on this one. And I only today, when I was thinking about the show, I thought, am I angry with you? Can that even apply to like a situation or, the sky, the gods above or whatever you may believe in? It's like when I had the wrist injury, like all of my mind, I was, really into guitar at the time. I'm still into guitar, obviously. It's how I make a living often, but it was that age. It was like everything, and I was practicing. And at that moment, it kind of got taken away. And I've only realized today that like maybe it would have been easier to mourn that struggle or get through a struggle if I'd actually allowed myself to be angry about it and just be like, why? This sucks. And the anger thing is dangerous, I guess, because it leads to the blame game. We like, this thing is bad. Whose fault is it? Sometimes it's just chance. You can be angry at chance. But anyway, that was the thrust of this song. The first verse opens up to this. If I am angry, I'm ashamed about that. And then the refrain is about memory, which a lot of us have. So either longing for, that's at the end, like longing for a memory that never happened. You wish things were different, or longing nostalgically for something that you don't have anymore, or living out of fear because of something that happened, or living the current situation for a set of criteria that no longer apply. So there's a lot of that memory thing happening with the song, but in quite a self-analytical way. And so I'm going to play it now, and then I'm going to go through the questions that were sent in about the song, and you can find the link in the description. And just while I remember about links, if you like my music or the show, or you want to just support me in any way, the best thing you can do, there's two best things at the moment that you can do. Number one is you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Chris Willow. That's the best way to support me with the show and with releasing my music and all the creative things I pursue. So there's buymeacoffee.com/Chris Willow. I believe there's a link as well in the description. And then the other thing you can do is follow me on Spotify. And there'll be a link for this song in Spotify, and you can just click follow, and then you can get notified. And Spotify just announced recently, which is very cool news. I just got the email today, or I think it was today, might have been yesterday, saying that on your Spotify account you can now list virtual events as gigs there. So these shows in future, I can get it so that it is on my Spotify. So if you're listening, you can be like, hey, he's got that show tonight or whatever, that sort of thing. But so lots of good stuff happening and with the show and the development, and I'm excited about that. So I'm going to play the song of the week. This recording as well is quite a special recording because it's the first time I recorded a song in this way, so raw, a kind of a live take. I think I overdubbed a little bit somewhere in the middle. There was a few seconds, but the guitar and the voice weren't recorded separately. So, and there was no click track, which a lot of music nowadays is recorded to. I didn't even have headphones on. It was a very cool experience. It was just, I set the mics up in the room. I just clicked record and let it run for like an hour. And I would do it, not feeling it, I'd stop. I would do it again, until I was in the zone. And so what came out was this recording, which has, I think, its own flavor as a result of that process. There is the cover. So if you're on Spotify, you'll see that. And I'm going to play it now, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions that you have sent in, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as well if anyone has other questions as well. But it's great to have you all here, by the way. Here's the song.
Am I angry with you? I'm ashamed. If it's true, I wouldn't know where to turn or what to do. I felt this before inside, a rage so terribly refined, a pain so visceral I'd cry to let it drain out if I could. And that day could not come soon enough, oh Lord, please hear me. I'm tired of running from a memory. Am I looking to get out? Is it true you let me down? I couldn't help myself tonight, I'm wide awake. I knelt before the cross again, asking Christ to let me in. I felt a moment's rest, but wished that I could be there all the time. And that day could not come soon enough, oh Lord, please hear me. I'm tired of living for a memory. Am I selfishly inclined? Are my motives misaligned for the purposes I claim to be mine? Has the time come and gone? Was I miming to a song written for me by the long list of names I sought to please? And I hope a day will come when I am free from who they wished I would be. I'm tired of singing empty melodies. If the way we left it then had you wanting for a friend, I am sorry and I'm back to make amends. I don't need you to be great, I don't need you to relate. All I want is you to see, and I'll see you in return. And that day could not come soon enough, oh Lord, please hear me. I'm tired of longing for a memory. I'm tired of longing for a memory. I'm tired of longing for a memory.
That was That Day Could Not Come Soon Enough. Thank you very much for listening. And some of my friends have liked that song like quite a lot, which is really cool because it's very easy to not pause, as we maybe it's right that we don't, as musicians, pause too long and stew in the current song, but rather write the next one. But it's been really nice to have so many people really like that. And I re-recorded this for the album, because the album was recorded in a slightly different fashion. And I got it much better, I guess, better recording quality and more accurate vocal take and guitar and stuff. But so I thought I would remove this single once the album came out with the other version. But I think the album version is much faster and cleaner, and there's something about the moodiness of this version that I think I have grown to accept and actually like. So I think I will leave this one up as is, or at least make sure that if it comes down, it goes back up, because I think it's got its own flavor, this recording. Thanks so much. I see your comments coming in, and So, just so we can cover these questions, I'm just moving aside so that can stay there. I'll just leave that there while I talk, so if people tune in, they know that I'm talking about that song. Yeah, I loved listening to that after a long time of not. So it's really cool to check out your music again after you've achieved some distance emotionally. So I'm going to answer some questions, and then we're going to play a fun game, which has been keeping me occupied for the last few days. So here we go. These questions have been sent in by some friends of the show. So I'm just getting one up from my phone, and there's another one. There's a few written on my screen here. So let's see. This one is from Adam, and he's saying, I love the song. Think it's one of your best, if not the best. Big words, Adam. Thank you very much. Could you explain in some detail how the writing of it came about? So I've done a little bit of that before. And this is quite intense here, or pointed. I like you say. I don't know if that's too vague. No. You say, if you're willing to share, what is the day? Or that day, that day could not come soon enough. So I think Adam's asking, what is that day? Which is a valid question, and maybe one that I should know the answer to. And I think that day is a day where those hang-ups that are mentioned in the verse that precedes that line are transcended and included into my person. So rather, I don't think that it's wishing for a new, an actual new circumstance, but rather a day where the circumstance mentioned in each one of those verses may or may not be in existence, but its sting is neutralized. So that's that day. And then I've got also another question. What's your story behind the lyrics? From Philip in South Africa. Thanks very much for sending that. He also said he wants to know more about the chord changes from a music theory perspective. So this song does have a few naughty changes, which I'll show you now. So I don't know if you can hear this one. So the verse, the main bit, is very very within the rules of the scale. It's but I think the changes that he will be referring to is those changes are the chorus changes, or that kind of refrain where it goes and I think that maybe that was a lucky accident at the time, because I definitely didn't sit there and overly think about it, but I really loved that little turnaround. So this I've used this before. This is the chord 4 for those theory heads among you. Chord 4 in a major scale. So it's traditionally major, but I make it minor here. And that happens quite a lot, but usually at the end of a phrase. So like, ooh. So I've used it like that, like very Beach Boysy, but I've never used it almost to launch the next phrase, which is, and that day could not come soon enough, oh Lord. So it's the change actually is almost the first chord of the vocal refrain, which I think may be a happy accident. I'd love to claim credit for that and say that I thought about it for hours and I was like, but it just happened in the moment, and somehow for the first launch to the one where it would normally resolve and end, but this time for whatever reason that chord happened there, which is also, it's doing the same thing in reverse. So this chord is normally a major and it becomes a minor, and this chord is normally a minor, and I made it a major, dominant seventh in this case. But and then that's called a what's that? It's a flat sixth. So there's a lot of push and pull in this chord progression, and this making the sixth a major is something I used in I Don't Want to See Anybody on the album I released as Lava Kiss, and then I did So it's a new trick in my toolbox that I've used. So thanks, Philip, for that question. And then last question before we move on to the second phase of this evening's programming is from Linda. And she says, do you avoid any rhyming schemes when you write lyrics, or do you just write what comes to you in the moment? Linda sent me this a few minutes ago, and I've kind of, in the background of my mind, been thinking about it because I don't really know. But I'm going to look. I'm interested to know, Linda. But I think I really try to write. I've noticed recently, especially in these songs recently, that I try to write lyrics, so it's a 4-line or whatever, but actually that could be a sentence. So rather than having lines that are rhyming individual statements, I try to have the statement. Recently, I found that I've had the statement actually play out over the course of the whole verse. And there'll be some individual lines that have their own statements and say this, and then the next line says this, but rhymes. But I think that with this style of writing that I've kind of moved more and more towards, I try to have it that if somebody spoke it would sound like a sentence, and you would just think, why does that guy rhyme in all of his sentences when he talks? So that's what I'm trying to have a run-on effect to answer that question. And this, like for example, the last verse, I try to have the rhymes happen while it could still be a sentence. So I say, if the way we left it then had you wanting for a friend, I am sorry and I'm back to make amends. So that's a 4-line thing, but it's actually a sentence. Or at least, yeah, it's a sentence, I guess. I don't know where the punctuation would go, but you get the idea. And then, I don't need you to be great. I don't need you to relate. All I want is you to see, and I'll see you in return. So my goal has been to make the lyrical line and thread stretch as far as I can, so that it becomes more conversational. And I think that then the rhyme becomes secondary. And if I can't get it conversationally with a rhyme, either I won't rhyme or I'll change the whole thing. I think I'm less likely to compromise and put a rhyme. If I have, I'd rather just not I'd rather scrap the whole thing and start again if I can't get that thread. And that's something that I'm working more and more and more and more on. And it's a real challenge, because what's happened is I will agonize over like one word. I usually write, like most songwriters, will write the bulk of the song, get it to 70% like within half an hour or an hour. And then I can spend days and days and days going over one word. Is it an and or is it a but? Is it an or? Those often the joining words, because or action words, anything that might undo the previous line and make the flow of the whole verse not be a coherent statement. So I hope that is of interest to you. Thanks for asking the question. That is my favorite question of the evening, because got me to think about my own process, which is really cool. So thanks very much for that. Now, the next bit of the show, actually before that, I would just like to say thanks so much for everyone who tuned in last time to watch myself and Amy Walton talk about her song Down, which came out. I've just seen she's in the chat room. So thanks Amy for coming on last week. It was great to have you. And I have been working on more material for and with Amy, so that is in the pipeline. So I'm sure she'll come on the show at a later date, and we can show you some of that stuff that we've been working on. So you can check out this song in the description of this video, where you can search "That Day Could Not Come Soon Enough." I'm getting very into wordy titles, because then I don't write myself into a corner and say I've already had a song called That Day or something. And it also means that you'll find it on Spotify. That Day Could Not Come Soon Enough. So thank you very much for letting me share that with you. And the next thing that I want to look at is, could take some time, but I'm here all night. So Amy, not Amy Walton, my housemate Amy, gave me a couple of books a while ago. Music Listography, and this one, which is more generalist listography, Your Life in Lists, from listography.com. And they basically have a list the professions you'd like to try, and then there's a picture. List people from history you'd like to have a conversation with, and then you can write. So it's very unstructured, which is nice. There's no kind of 1 to 10 or top 10 or anything like that. And I've never done these. I'm a bit of a procrastinator with that sort of thing. Not procrastinator, like kind of wait for the perfect time. But there is no perfect time, of course, until now. And this one is specifically about music. And as you can see, I've not filled it in. So I thought, on some of these shows, I thought I could go into some of these things, or at least inspired by these questions, because I looked into one of them this week, which was like a full-on trip, because it took me down memory lane, and I had to call my parents and ask them some questions and stuff and about it. And that was this one. But I was inspired by this question, but I've actually changed the question for myself. It was, there we go. List the music your parents listened to when you were a kid. And I thought that, given that the song was about memory, perhaps in a more negative way, I thought what a nice antidote to that, to look back with some nostalgia. And this was amazing for me, because it's you hear something, you're like, I don't remember this, and then you play it and you're like, wow, it's deep in the bones. Even it was just via osmosis, some of this music crept in. And what would be amazing would be if some of you can list the music for you. So what it was, I've changed that phrase to list music that you were exposed to by your parents as a kid. And the reason I've changed it from your parents listened to as a kid exposed for me is because one, I don't know what they listen to on their own time. It was actually the same stuff, but anyway. And also both my parents are and were musicians at the time that I was alive, and now, but more so, my dad was playing a lot, and he was head of music at the school that I got to go to as a result, which was really cool, a very cool school. And he ran a school orchestra, and my mom played piano in the church, like the children's church. So it was an Anglican style church, but they had like this children's church for the young kids, and we sang fun songs. My mom played piano there, and she also taught piano, and my sister played piano from 7, maybe earlier, I'm not sure, but I played cello from 7. So it was, I don't play anymore, but I played then. So the reason I've changed the phrasing from parents, the music my parents listened to, I've changed it to the music that I was exposed to by my parents, because I've wanted to include stuff that maybe they didn't play on records, which would have been, pre-Spotify, pre-CDs would have been expensive at the time. And even as CDs came in, that stuff was super expensive. And so a lot of the music that I was exposed to, or at least some of it, came from actually like hearing my parents play music, or my dad learning pieces, or the school orchestra concerts that he put on, or my mom playing in the church. And another massive honorable mention, which is not necessarily me they listen to, but yes, I've changed the question to what they exposed me to, was there's this guy, I only found out his name today, because in my infancy I referred to him simply as the Trumpet Man. And for anyone who lives in Cape Town, if you've ever seen that trumpet player at the V&A waterfront, his name is Abie, or Abby, I'm not sure, Thomas. ABIE, Thomas. And this guy is like an institution in Cape Town. And my parents used to take me to the waterfront to see him play. And we got some photos somewhere of him letting me push down the valves, I think. And he was an amazing musical hero of mine, I guess, at that really early age, which is bizarre, because it's not bizarre, it's to be expected, I guess, because he was a street performer, busker, because it wasn't on the street, it was in the waterfront, and he must have been the official guy, because he was there. He's probably still there, and he's, as far as I know, played there since the place existed. And yeah, so I used to go and watch him at like the age of, I guess, 3 or 4, and this dude was the rock star. So yeah, very cool guy. He's probably been that for almost generations of people, rather than necessarily just individuals like me. But if you're from Cape Town, I don't know if you remember him, but put that in the comments if you do. He was amazing. And yep, so I have made a list, and it was a trip down memory lane. So both my parents were classical musicians. Classical is the word that's still used mostly for, like, classic FM and those sort of things, but I guess it's changing a bit. Sometimes people are referring to Western art music now, because classical music, the word classical comes from a specific period in history of the greater thing that people also call classical music. There's Baroque, and there's first it's medieval, then Renaissance, then Baroque, then classical, then Romantic, then 20th and 21st century music are the terms used in this Western art music thing, and people will call the whole thing as well classical music, but I think that's probably going to change as time goes on. But it's certainly classical in the kind of technical sense, to European classical music. So things that I would have seen this sort of imagery a lot growing up. That sort of artwork was everywhere at the school where my dad taught, and those sort of composers. And this also with this list, if you want to join in and do your list, even just it's not a top 10 or a top 5, you just throw anything that comes to mind. But it's not really about whether you like it or not. It's just the stuff that was so early on that you're like, this is what music is. It's those things, because those are the only things I've heard. So this sort of stuff, the great classical composers, I would have been exposed to all of them really from a young age. But I spoke to my parents and found out what recordings they had, because these were the days where sound recordings of music were so valuable. You would remember, you'd save up and get the one thing. So we had my dad being a strings player, we had loads of string quartet music, which is 4 string players, violin, cello and viola, and we had loads of that, Haydn being his favorite. And then violin concertos, which are kind of like a show-off thing for the performer. So a concerto is a piece where a soloist is featured, but backed by orchestra. So you need to be quite the star of your day to have backing of the whole orchestra. So we had Tchaikovsky, Bruch, Mendelssohn, Beethoven, violin concertos. Those ones would have been big. Then my mom was very into the Organ Symphony by Saint-Saëns, who's a French composer. He's very cool. And I remember something that I've only realized now might have had more of an impact than I thought was, or it's complete coincidence, but Saint-Saëns also did something called the Carnival of the Animals, which has a different piece for different animals. And maybe that influenced Submarine Dream with all the different, sea creatures. I'm not sure. But it's definitely interesting that happened. And then some of the more jazzy stuff that was played around the house a lot was a violinist called Stephen Grappelli, or Stefan, I think, and Udi Menuhin. Those two violinists had a lot of duo albums. And Grappelli's famous for playing with Django Reinhardt, and the two of them are basically credited for inventing a style of music which is now called Gypsy jazz. So you can check that out if you want. I think I'm going to put some of these links in the description. And but this has been a trip down memory lane. And then a lot of, so I said church music already. There was one church band, like Christian band, who I looked on their Wikipedia. Their genre was Jesus music. So that was quite interesting. And they were called Second Chapter of Acts, and they're pretty cheesy by many of our standards, but there was this one guitar lick in the one song that I was like, no ways. You can have a guitar lick in between the vocal lines and the chorus? What? And that was a big thing for me. Now on to the contemporary music that more of you may know. So a lot of this stuff is there was like literally a handful of CDs. I've got 5 here that I remember in that first batch. The first was Queen, A Night at the Opera, which my parents didn't play to me, but I've counted it in the exposed me to list because they had recklessly left it in the CD collection. And I put it on. And it blew my mind because I think it was the first time I'd heard electric guitar like that and drums and a rock band. And I went through the liner notes about 100 times, over and over and over again. I thought these guys were like mythical gods. And they kind of were. But so Queen, A Night at the Opera was amazing. This list isn't about things that were amazing to me. These were just things that were forced upon me or that I was exposed to without, and this is the list about prior to you forming your own tastes. And then the next thing was we did a couple of road trips, and I remember two other CDs becoming big, and one was a soft rock band called Bread from the 70s. It's kind of like, I guess, like a Travis of the 70s or something, but like kind of really easygoing strings rock band thing. And I think we had that CD because they had come to South Africa to do a show, and they had hired string players, and my dad got hired to play in the string section. So we were all, I guess, excited by that. It was before I can remember, but I heard the story later on and listened to it with maybe more intensity than we would have otherwise. And yeah, so that was quite a big one. And then the other one, the singer-songwriter Jim Croce, he died tragically young, either in a plane crash or helicopter crash, something like that. His most famous song is Time in a Bottle. If I could save time in a bottle. And he also did a song called Lover's Cross, Bad Leroy Brown, Operator, won't you help me place this call? And he was also very 70s, but a bit more finger-picky. I think what's really interesting about these early influences, it's like if you hear finger-picking acoustic guitar on that one album, and that's the first one you hear it, you just absorb the whole concept of that thing from that one source. And the other bits, I've got some others here. So that's 3. And then there's only 2 other CDs that we had that I remember at that initial stage, the really early stage. And that was Joan Baez, the best of. I don't know if you know Joan Baez, folk singer from the kind of Woodstock generation. Very unique voice. And the song I liked the most on there was Diamonds. Is it Diamonds to Rust or something about Diamonds to Rust, which she wrote about Bob Dylan. But I don't know if that really grabbed me. But as I say, that's not the point of this. It's just what was playing, because I think what was playing when we were kids, or what we were exposed to, whether we like it or not, had an effect. But I do like it. It's not saying I don't. But and then the next one, which is probably had the most visibly or noticeably lasting effect on me, was we had the 1975 version of the best of Leonard Cohen. So it was best of before he went through his 80s stuff and kind of later 70s stuff. So it was the first 4 albums, the best songs from that from those albums. And I don't know that I was super into lyrics yet, but I liked the catchy song, So Long Marianne, and I liked Suzanne. But I definitely think that probably exposed me to the idea of lyric writing being like a mega thing, which has been the dominant area of growth, I guess, from the early years. And there was, Mom had a Krista Berg CD, Beautiful Dream. I actually liked that song very much. It's like about this outer space something. But she loved this song called Patricia the Stripper. And she had a giggle about that on WhatsApp. She said she's a good or bad mom, sort of wink, exposing us to such racy songs. But these are all later. So those first 5 were like the main thing. And then so Mom would have been playing that. And then there were 2 things that I have to credit my dad for, this is also a little bit later, where maybe I'm starting to slightly form my own taste anyway. And my dad came back from a CD shop, and he had ordered something in that he remembered from his childhood, which was a 70s hard rock, proggy, metal-y band called Uriah Heap from here. And they're an English band, but they were I think they're much bigger outside of England. So they were big in New Zealand and South Africa. So Uriah Heap Return to Fantasy was a CD that he brought home, and I was listening to it in my room with headphones. And my mom came in. She was very angry that he had bought such, metal. And then Magna Carta, Lord of the Ages, is another album that is an English album, but I think people outside of England, in places like South Africa, think that it's much bigger than it was, but that's not putting any of these bands down or anything, but it's a bit like somebody's mentioned in the comments there, Rodriguez, and Rodriguez wasn't something I was aware of. He wasn't a musician I was aware of at all until that movie, Searching for Sugar Man, which won the Oscar for Best Documentary. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but there's this really good movie called Searching for Sugar Man, where it follows this guy, the story of this guy called Rodriguez, who, spoiler alert, he didn't know that he was a really big deal in South Africa. So he thought maybe his career's over, and he got some other jobs. But I think that on a less dramatic scale, that sort of thing happened a lot with South Africa, where we had like a authoritarian government, and long story, but they weren't good. And so a lot of music didn't get through. So whatever got through, I think got bigger than it would have elsewhere. So this heavy rock band Uriah Heap were big, and Magna Carta, who are an English kind of folksy band, and that was also maybe a journey into fantasy. Uriah Heap's called Return to Fantasy, the album, and Lord of the Ages is the Magna Carta album, and both of those you can hear are like super fantasy, Lord of the Ages is this long spoken word bit about, from a time before time, and nights, something in white samite, and using these kind of really wordy English isms that I had never heard in a pop music context before. So I think that those two also pushed me more into a more lyric based zone. But that was that for me, and that's it from me. But it's been really interesting to listen to all this stuff again, even if you think that no, I didn't really remember it, or it's like, whoa, definitely exposed to that. And what's interesting is to see where which elements were stuck, which stuck on and I kept. But anyway, I'm just gonna check the comments here. Rodriguez, yes, I mentioned. No, didn't know Rodriguez growing up. Amy says that Queen was her dad's music. I think they were also really big in South Africa, and I also think that the idea of cool wasn't really there because there's so much less stuff, and so it was slower moving. So if somebody was hip in the UK for like this year, they would be hip for longer in SA. So James, knows that stuff. James had Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell. I didn't have Joni Mitchell or Bob Dylan or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. It was just Leonard Cohen from that scene. But anyway, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm going to leave you to it. But so check out these books. I'm not endorsed or sponsored by this book, Listography, but it's cool. It kind of got the juices flowing. Lisa Nola wrote this book, or made this book. So thank you, Lisa. And I will probably be doing more of that. And also, last thing. So I mentioned I played the cello, which is like a big violin. I recently, but I haven't played it in almost 2 decades. But I do have a cello now, which somebody lent us. I don't think it's fully full size, but to show you. So maybe I will dust off the old chops and play it on one of the records or something. But let me show you. I think it's that's it. So this, for those of you who don't know, is a cello. It's not. It's like, hey man, that guitar's weird. But check here. So I think it's slightly too. I think it's like 4/5 of a normal full size, and this is the bow in here. But somebody has lent that to us for safekeeping, and we're allowed to use it. So maybe that's going to feature on an album at some point if I can sound okay on it. But it's been great chatting, everybody. It's always a pleasure. And if you like the song, That Day Could Not Come Soon Enough, buymeacoffee.com/Chris Willow. And please follow me on Spotify. I'm going to send a link to the Spotify in the chat now. And yeah, it's been great. And I have the next single queued up for the next first Wednesday. And I hope to get some guests on as well in the future, including Amy Walton, who's already been on, but some others as well. So there's a lot brewing in the pipeline. So thank you so much for being a part of this. And you can listen whenever you want to tune in. I'll be here first and third Wednesdays of the month at 8 p.m. English time. So thank you very much, everybody. Catch you later.